Well, hello and welcome to the Habitual Excellence podcast. I'm Mark Graban from Value Capture, and we're joined today by Dr. Eric Dickson. He is the president and chief executive officer of UMass Memorial Healthcare. Eric, hi, how are you?
You're doing great, Mark. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Really looking forward to hearing your perspectives, looking back a little bit and looking more recently at what's been going on this year. But so, if you could start off and tell the listeners about how and when you came in as an outsider, being brought in as CEO, and how lean was part of the strategy for what you and the health system were facing at that time.
Well, I guess I was a semi-outsider. I had kind of grown up here at UMass Memorial and at UMass. I went to residency here, med school here. First job as an emergency physician was here, and I had left and gone to the University of Iowa, and uh, was really struggling as chairman of the Department of Emergency Medicine there in terms of running clinical operations. I didn't understand the science of improvement. And that's where I first learned lean back in 2003, 2004 with some great mentors. And it got me on track for managing an emergency department. And when I came back to UMass Memorial, first within the medical group, and then not too long thereafter as CEO of the healthcare system, we found ourselves almost in the same situation and the same challenges that I was facing in running an emergency department at Iowa, and just had no consistent methodology for planning, for execution, for solving problems, no way to just no lens to look at things. Everybody was kind of flying by the seat of their pants. And so what I tried to do then was to pull in what had worked for me at the University of Iowa, this lean management system, and just really define how are we going to do strategy, how are we going to assure execution, what is our model for problem solving if we face a problem, and get people trained up in that. And the numbers are always the thing that people use to tell the story. um, the finances went from a $55 million loss to a $55 million operating margin, but more importantly, patient satisfaction, quality, and engagement of our staff increased. And over the course of the 7 years that I've been CEO, 7 years plus now, we just get a little better every year, and the people get stronger as problem solvers. And it's almost automatic the way we do things now. So whatever challenge is thrown at us, including the most recent one, we have those years of development of the people to get us through, and they certainly shined in the last crisis we faced.
Mhm. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit. You bring up two really important characteristics of a lean culture. You talk about frontline problem solving and you talk about strategy. So maybe first on frontline problem solving, I know there's been a lot of great engagement of frontline staff and continuous improvement. You've blogged about this and shared about this a lot. Could you elaborate on what that's meant to the people and to the health system, that focus on engagement and improvement?
Well, we talk about our culture that we've been creating here and continue to work to create here, built on the foundation of innovation, right? And PDCA, however we want to do that. And it's that continuous improvement through innovation and experimentation, driving us from where we are to where we want to be, true north in the organization. And that second pillar for us being respect for people. And there's no greater way to show respect for people than to listen to them, to implement their ideas, and to truly listen to them and recognize that whoever's doing that job today is probably the expert, not you, the person sitting outside, regardless of your position. And so it's we really try to make it as simple as possible, um, for especially our managers to understand. We're going to engage every one of our people every day in experimenting and innovating and trying new ways to get us from where we are to where we aspire to be, and true north. for the organization. And we're going to do so in a way that shows respect for people and everything that we do. And it's that simple when you think of the paradigm, but boy, is it hard every single day to focus your problem solving as a way of developing your people. And I think that's been the key for us, having a standard methodology, our A3 kind of methodology. And this is how we analyze problems. And everybody gets taught on it. 14,000 employees, everyone's been taught on it. And then the coaching to the managers are that even though I know you can probably jump in and solve that problem quicker, or you probably think you have the right root cause, you have to work that frontline caregiver through the problem solving process such that they develop, because that's worth a lot more than solving a problem quickly. And it really is developing your people through the problem solving process. And that's something that, the competition can't quickly replicate, right? And in terms of a developed workforce that has become problem solvers, and it really becomes a strategic differentiator for you. Everybody wants to say, oh, our people are a differentiator for us strategically. And I'll say, well, what have you done to create such that great pool of people? And tell me about your training programs. Tell me about the daily work and how they're being developed. And very few can really articulate that. I can show you that we spent tens of millions of dollars investing in the development of our people and the training of our managers to use daily improvement as a way to develop them. And that's a differentiator for us, I think.
And I mean, how easy or difficult is it to evaluate that investment, as you put it? I'm not arguing with having made that investment, of course, but
no, everybody wants the ROI, right? And I think sometimes even people in my position will, delegate their lean to someone. Could be an HR in terms of the people development office, could be into a separate process improvement. Say, look, we'll put $4 million into this, but I just need to see a ROI within 2 years of, double, triple what we're putting in. And we have not focused on that. For us, it is all about results. And if we see quality metrics improving, patient experience improving, workforce morale, engagement scores improving, if I see those three things improve, I'll tell you, your finances are going to improve if you've got anyone that can manage this. And so when I talk about the return on investment, it's I look right back up to the True North metrics and say, are they getting better or are they getting worse?
Yeah.
And sometimes things need a little bit of more time to bake, but there's just a belief, I think, throughout the healthcare system that the development of our people is what's driving our increased improved performance year over year. And it's a long-term differentiator for us. It's not something that's likely to disappear quickly in a downturn. In fact, I think during a downturn like we're seeing right now, that's even more of an opportunity to invest in your people. You might have some time to do it in development programs, because when things emerge, you're going to emerge with an even stronger workforce. So if I've learned anything from this COVID crisis, it's double down on your people development programs, because no matter what comes your way, and we weren't looking towards this, a talented workforce that feels empowered and is looking for waste and driving out waste and can redesign a process like a drive-through testing lab, in a matter of a day or two, it can put up a hospital in a convention center for 200 people with a 6-bed ICU in 8 days. That's priceless to an organization.
And so, you talk about this investment in problem-solving capabilities as being strategic. I mean, let's kind of go back to earlier. You mentioned strategy. And what does that mean from a lean management system perspective compared to maybe traditional approaches to strategy? Are there parallels in the problem solving thought processes or other elements that you bring into strategy?
Yeah, and I think that, it's probably the area that I have the most um, to develop in terms of myself as a leader and thinking from strategy in terms of, a lean methodology for developing strategy. I go back to something, it's a figure that Steve Spear showed me years ago, that was, you're here, you want to be here. And the key to getting from here to there is engaging every one of your people every day and trying to move you in that position through their ideas, through their problem solving. But you need a plan. You ultimately need a plan to get from one place to another. And you could have the best strategic plan in the world, know exactly what to do. Um, and it doesn't mean a thing if you can't execute it.
Mm.
And so engage every one of your people every day. Part of that has to be, and okay, there's a whole bunch of things we're going to have to execute on in the next few years. Have your key leaders and the next level of management been involved in the development of the work that they're going to have to execute on? And have you really listened to them because they know the opportunities that are out there? And so with our management system, we said, okay, first we're going to standardize and then we'll improve like everything we do. And so we standardized our strategic planning cycle, documented it, and people read it and they say, well, that's not particularly novel, right? We're going to have these. I meet with there's 600 managers at UMass Memorial. I meet with every one of them every year in groups of about 20 to talk about the current strategy and where the opportunities are. It's not particularly novel. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but that's a way to engage all of those key stakeholders in both the development and execution of the strategy. We have, we document retreats. We have an interview process. And so what I would say is our strategic planning process, like every one of our other management processes, is written down. Every new manager reads it. They understand it. They've got a cycle to it. And every year we go back and say, how can we improve the strategic planning process such that it helps us move faster from where we are to where we want to be? And just having it written down and making sure that we're following it and executing on it has made a world of difference. Because in most organizations that I went into, would go into and say, okay, let me see your strategic planning process. I'd like to read about it. I'd like to see it, any figures associated with it. Don't show me your strategic plan. Show me your strategic planning process. Very, very few could produce you standard work for that. And if you don't have it standardized, you really can't improve it over time. So I think with all of those processes that that we're working on, it's first standardize it, taking into account your local situation and best practices that are out there, but make it yours. And then every year review it, or every 6 months review it and improve it. For us, that's an every year review of that process.
Yeah.
That's what's made the difference. And it ties right back into the more important process, which is execution.
Yeah. And when you talk about true north and having goals and direction and trying to execute against that, I want to come back to the topic of safety and why is it so important to focus on safety as a primary as a main goal within the context of other true north objectives?
Well, our overarching true north goal is to perfect the customer experience, our patient experience, and our workers' experience. Best place to give care, best place to get care. And if I'm coming into a work environment, I still take care of patients clinically, and I'm getting harmed when I come into work, well, that's not best place to give care. And or if I'm a customer and I'm getting harmed, that's not best place to get care. And the way we do our performance metrics, and this is all the way trickled down to the board of trustees as we review our performance, patient oriented metrics first, then our people oriented metrics. Those two things always come first. And if we have time, we go into our other metrics. And first, it's mortality for the patient. First, don't kill me if I come to your hospital, right? If I can survive, I want to survive. Second, don't hurt me. That's the safety issue. Third, I'd like to have a good experience in terms of the patient experience. And right in that order is the way we review performance. And then it's the same for our employees. And if you came in here, you looked on the wall, you'd see the number of employees that were hurt last month and while doing their job. And our goal is for that to be zero. That's that top employee metric. And we put the patient harm score and the employee harm score, number of patients harmed, the number of employees harmed, right on the same sheet, because our goal is zero harm. And that's the pursuit of truly true north, the perfect customer experience, perfect patient employee caregiver experience. And everyone sees it, everyone knows it, and never pass a defect down the line is part of what we talk about. If you see something that could hurt somebody, an employee or patient, you have to stop right then and there, and we have to fix it. We have to huddle. We have the daily safety huddle to do it. Because if you don't create that safe workplace, you're just not going to really have the hearts and minds of your people. And the great Paul O'Neill, who just recently passed, just amazing leader, ran Alcoa, and that is the number one priority. Nobody gets hurt in a very dangerous business. And what Paul said to me, and it stuck with me for close to 2 decades, is if you can fix everything that's going to potentially harm your employees in 24 hours, every time you see something, you fix it, you rush, not waiting weeks and months and committees, fix it now. Everything in your company will move faster. Not just that, everything. So yes, it was about keeping people safe, but was creating this tension and this energy that, hey, if we can fix these things fast, let's fix the other thing, customer-related issues fast. And he said everything at Alcoa is sped up in decision-making and problem-solving, even though it was just initially focused on that workplace safety. I'll never forget sitting down and hearing that from him, because it stuck with me. And he's absolutely right. When you learn to solve problems faster, it's not isolated to one area of the problems that you solve.
Yeah, and it's always inspiring. We have the opportunity to hear recordings of what Mr. O'Neill talked about, what many of us heard him say in person about the importance of all of this. And in episode 6 of the podcast, I had the opportunity to talk to Bill O'Rourke, who was an executive at Alcoa. Have you ever met Bill?
I know of Bill, but don't know Bill personally.
So he, in that episode, he talked about how Mr. O'Neill not only challenged them, he challenged them for the idea of nobody should get hurt at work. And then the further challenge was, how do we actually help people go home healthier than they were when they walked in the door? You could think both physically and emotionally. And I think that's an interesting challenge that I don't think I've ever heard anyone else talk about.
That's great. I've got to go back and listen to that podcast.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to that, Eric. And again, for the listeners or anyone watching, it's episode 6 of the podcast. So maybe kind of final topic here, Eric. During this COVID crisis, which for a lot of health systems has also been not just a health crisis but a financial crisis. I've seen what you and the organization have shared online about making a commitment to no layoffs and no furloughs, and I think that really stands out as being noteworthy. I was wondering if you could tell us about what led to that.
Yeah, and it was a tough decision, and there was certainly an extensive conversation that occurred related to it. But we went back and said, what is the culture that we're trying to build here, and have been working for 7+ years, and everyone's involved in improvement, and respect for people. And we didn't know how bad this was going to be, how long the recovery was going to be. And we saw revenue drop by 40% in March, And we could have saved maybe $5 to $10 million with furloughs and layoffs at that point. And we said, okay, will it be worth it if, you know, in 3-4 months down the line, when we're recovering, when we're through this, or at least the surge, we're through this, you know, what is the workforce going to come back like after we turn our back on it? And so we watched what others were doing, and we looked at our particular cash situation, and said, you know what, like, we're going to stand by our people, respect for people, not going to furlough, we're not going to lay off. But we are going to ask every one of them to be an ambassador for the organization. We are going to ask every one of them to look at the way they're doing their job and spend time that may be downtime, to kind of think about ways you can improve. And we asked people to do training online that had downtime. And they're just, if you have 40% less revenue, you have 40% less bills to collect on, for example. And our revenue cycle team, because they had time to do improvement work, was able to shorten AR days by 10 days off AR during the time that they were mostly working from home in this crisis. And if we had furloughed them and laid them off because we didn't have as much billing work to do, I can't imagine what my days AR would be today, but it'd probably have gone up by 10 at that point.
Yeah.
And now, you know, we're pretty quickly back to 95, 96% of revenue. And I have a totally engaged workforce that feels like we stood by them during a difficult time. And instead of taking the, you know, the easy road or the quick, let's save some dollars so we make a decent quarter. And I can't find any other healthcare system around us that is at 90, 95, 96% of revenue. And so now, you know, we're taking that engagement and we're leveraging it again as a strategic differentiator. It's a chance for us to grab market share. Like, we've got our processes improved over this period of time. And not everyone can do it, and you can't do it forever. But when you have one of those slowdowns, and it might be a month, 2 months, 3 months, a quarter, it's a great time to take your people, invest in them and development programs, and also say, we're going to stand by you, but I want you to spend time thinking about improvements that can be made in your area. Our ophthalmology department, which was very slow, redesigned their patient flow during the COVID crisis remotely. And now they're at about 110% of their previous COVID volume. And so I think in the long run, it'll be a very good decision. It's been a good decision for us thus far. And, you know, it's respect for people, and that has to come first.
Well, thank you for, you know, for sharing not only, you know, what you did, but the thought process behind it. I think it's really interesting to hear. I appreciate, like you said, it wasn't an easy decision, but thank you for kind of, you know, for sharing that example. I hope that inspires others to rethink things down the road.
For the finance folks, I think we're going to see a big return on investment for it.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. Is there anything else that you would want to share with us, Eric? You know, any learnings, anything that was surprising during these kind of unprecedented times?
I think that, you know, a couple of lessons learned. The first I talked so much about already, that, you know, develop your people, because when a crisis hits, that's going to be your number one thing that you have. And you can't say, oh, quick, we're in crisis, I want to develop my people now. You know, your time to have done that was before. And so as everyone regroups after this COVID thing, really look at your programs to do that. You know, the second thing that I think is worked out well, and it was maybe something that I could do a little bit easier than other folks, is people were feeling unsafe in their work environment during all of this. And I spent as much time as I could, not just in the hospital, but on the COVID units. Worked every Sunday night in the COVID tent, taking care of patients. And not because I made much of a difference in terms of how much clinical care I could provide, but I wanted to say to our people that, okay, I'm not going to ask you to put yourself into a situation that I wouldn't put myself into. I'm not going to ask, you know, and I heard about some executives that were, you know, well away from their hospitals, maybe in a safe zone somewhere, trying to run their hospitals. And I would say the exact opposite is what people want to see. Down on the shop floors or in the Gemba, and in the environment that you've asked them to go into. And for us, the PPE thing, I've got so many nice notes that we bent over backwards to assure that we had the protective equipment, everything we could get our hands on for our people. And that I've got so many thank you notes for, not trying to skimp on patients' equipment. And I have to believe that this is all going to, it makes us feel good. I think we're a better organization having emerged from this, in part because we managed the crisis well. And, it was all about the people while this was going on. It's all about the people now, and keep focused on them, and your business will be fine.
Hmm. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Eric, for sharing all that and your other reflections here. Again, our guest has been Dr. Eric Dickson. He's the President and Chief Executive Officer at UMass Memorial Healthcare. Eric, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mark. Stay well.
You too. Thanks.